The lecture hall at the Galactic Institute was packed that morning. Students from 12 different species filled the curved rows of seats, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few existed as pure energy contained in specialized suits. At the front of the room, Professor Velterra, a seasoned Voltani diplomat with silver skin and 4 graceful arms, pulled up a holographic display that filled the air above her desk. The words glowed in standard galactic script. Human species, permanently banned from combat simulations. Immediate laughter rippled through the room. Dax Thor, a massive Kryn warrior scholar whose species was legendary for their battlefield prowess, didn't even try to hide his amusement. He was easily twice the size of any human, with natural bone plating covering his shoulders and arms. His deep voice boomed across the lecture hall. Pathetic. The council protects them like children who might scrape their knees. Several students around him nodded and chuckled. A Vexian student with 6 eyes made a gesture that translated to mockery in his culture. Another student, a floating gas being, flashed colors that indicated disdain. Liena, a Savari analyst known throughout the Institute for her sharp intellect and sharper tongue, was already pulling up data on her personal display. The Savari were among the galaxy's best strategists, and Liena took pride in her species' reputation. She projected the information for everyone to see. Look at this. Human biological specifications. No armor plating whatsoever. No venom glands. No natural weapons. Their strength rating is below galactic average. Their sensory range is limited to a narrow spectrum. She scrolled through more data, her voice dripping with condescension. They can't see in the dark properly. They can't hear ultrasonic frequencies. They don't have any regenerative capabilities worth mentioning. By every measurable standard, they're prey animals that somehow developed technology and convinced the council to let them join. More laughter filled the room. A student in the 3rd row called out, "How did they even survive on their home world? Did nothing try to eat them? Probably hid in caves," someone else suggested, which prompted another wave of amusement. In the back row, Lieutenant Miho sat perfectly still. The human exchange officer wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. For 3 weeks now, he had listened to variations of the same conversation. 3 weeks of jokes about human fragility. 3 weeks of being treated like a curiosity, a pet, or worse, a burden that the galaxy had to tolerate for political reasons. Next to him, Hannah, a human medical researcher, kept her eyes fixed on her desk. Her hands were clenched beneath the table, where no one could see them. She had learned quickly that reacting only made the mockery worse. Vero, son of a prominent politician from the unified sectors, turned in his seat to look directly at them. He was a handsome being by his species standards, with metallic skin that caught the light. His father's position made him influential, and he knew it. "I have to ask, why don't you two defend yourselves? We've been discussing human weakness for weeks now, and you just sit there. Do you actually accept that your species is weak? Is that why you stay quiet?" The room went silent, waiting for a response. I turned to the back row. Miho slowly raised his head. His face was calm, almost expressionless, but something in his eyes made a few students in the front row shift uncomfortably. "You really want to know why we're banned from combat simulations?" Dax Thor laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "To save you embarrassment. Obviously, the council knows you'd be eliminated in the first hour of any real competition. They're sparing you the humiliation of losing to actual warrior species." Several students applauded this statement. Liena smirked, clearly enjoying the moment, but Professor Velterra's 3 eyes narrowed. She had been teaching at the Institute for 40 years, and she had learned when students were about to cross a dangerous line. "Class," she said, her voice cutting through the noise, "I would advise caution here." "Caution about what?" Liena challenged. "We're stating facts, Professor. Humans are biologically inferior for combat. The data is clear." Velterra's expression hardened. The ban wasn't implemented to protect humans. That got everyone's attention. The laughter died down. Students exchanged confused glances. "What do you mean?" Vero asked. Before Velterra could answer, Dax Thor stood up, his full height imposing. With respect, Professor, I think we deserve to see the evidence. If this ban is justified, show us the footage. Show us whatever happened that made the council decide humans needed to be excluded. A murmur of agreement spread through the classroom. Students began calling out their support. Yes, show us the records. We have a right to understand council decisions. Let's see what humans did that was so terrible they got banned. The mockery in their voices was obvious. They didn't believe humans could have done anything impressive. They assumed the footage would show exactly what they expected. Humans failing, humans retreating, humans proving they didn't belong in the same arena as true warriors. Miho and Hannah exchanged a glance. Hannah shook her head slightly, a warning, but Miho's jaw was set. Leanna was already preparing a formal petition on her tablet. Professor, we're submitting an official request to review the classified footage that led to the human combat simulation ban. As advanced students of interspecies relations, we have clearance for historical records. This is relevant to our studies. I strongly advise against this, Velterra said, but her voice had a strange quality. Not anger, something closer to concern, or perhaps pity. But the students were energized now, feeding off each other's confidence. Within minutes, they had gathered signatures from every non-human student in the class. The petition was filed. The Academy administration, perhaps tired of the controversy or believing that truth would settle the matter, reluctantly approved the request. Viewing date, 7 days from now. As the class filed out, still laughing and congratulating themselves, Miho remained seated. Hannah leaned close. They have no idea what they're asking to see. No, Miho agreed quietly. They don't. And in that moment, Velterra caught his expression and felt a chill run through her. She had seen that look before, 47 years ago, on the faces of human soldiers. It was a look of someone who knew exactly how the story ended. Over the next 7 days, the mockery reached new heights. What had started as casual dismissal turned into something crueler, more organized. Students across the Institute treated the upcoming viewing like a joke, a chance to prove once and for all that humans were the galaxy's charity case. Daxthor became the ringleader. He organized what he called educational demonstrations in the common areas. Using the Institute's holographic training room, he staged elaborate mock battles. In each one, he played himself, while a smaller student volunteered to play the human. The script never changed. The human character would attempt 1 or 2 weak attacks, then throw up their hands and surrender within minutes. Other students would gather to watch, howling with laughter, and that, Daxthor would announce dramatically, is why humans are banned. Not because they're dangerous, but because watching them compete would be painful for everyone. The videos spread like wildfire across the galactic network. Students from other campuses joined in, creating their own versions. Someone made an animated series called Humanity's Greatest Defeats that showed humans running away from every challenge. Another group composed a song about fragile species that needed protection. The humans became the galaxy's favorite punchline. Leanna took a more analytical approach, which somehow felt worse. She published a research paper titled The Human Paradox, How a Prey Species Achieved Spaceflight. In it, she argued that humans only survived through hiding, running, and eventually getting lucky with tool use. She presented it to packed lecture halls, using Miho and Hannah's presence in the Institute as living evidence of human mediocrity. Look at them, she would say, gesturing to where the two humans sat. Average height, average weight. No distinguishing features that suggest combat capability. They're office workers and scientists pretending to be equals with warriors. Through it all, Miho and Hannah stayed quiet. They ate lunch alone. They attended classes and took notes. They didn't fight back or argue. To the other students, this silence confirmed everything they believed. On the 5th day, Hannah had finally had enough. She found the main group in the cafeteria during peak hours. Daxthor was holding court at the center table, surrounded by 24 students. They were watching his latest video on a shared display and laughing. Hannah walked straight up to their table. Her hand was shaking, but her voice was steady. Stop the viewing request. The laughter died. Everyone turned to stare at her. Daxthor looked genuinely surprised that she had approached them. Leanna recovered first, her face shifting into a patronizing smile. Why would we do that? Afraid we'll see your species fail? Is that it? You've been quiet this whole time, and now that we're about to see the truth, you want us to stop? Vero leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. If humans had actually done something impressive in that simulation, you wouldn't be trying to stop us from seeing it. This just proves we're right. Other students nodded and murmured agreement. A Vexian student called out, "Maybe humans should never have been allowed in the council at all." Hannah looked at each of them in turn. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper, but something in it made the nearest students lean back. "No, I'm not afraid you'll see us fail. I'm afraid you'll never sleep again." The cafeteria went completely silent. What's that supposed to mean? Daxtor asked, but his confident tone had slipped slightly. Hannah didn't answer. She just turned and walked away, leaving the group staring after her. That same afternoon, Professor Velterra called Miho to her office. The room was lined with artifacts from her decades of diplomatic service, awards and honors from a dozen worlds. She stood at the window, looking out over the Institute's grounds, her back to him. "Are you certain about allowing this?" she asked without turning around. Miho stood at ease, military-bearing automatic after years of service. "Yes, Professor. You could stop it. File a counterpetition. Claim the footage is too sensitive. The Academy would accept that." "I could," Miho agreed, "but I won't." Velterra finally turned to face him. In all her years of teaching, she had learned to read dozens of species, to understand their expressions and body language. Miho's face was calm, but his eyes held something she recognized. Resolve, the kind that didn't bend. "They need to understand," Miho continued. "The galaxy keeps misreading our kindness. They see peace-seeking as weakness. They see diplomacy as cowardice. Someone has to show them the truth. This will change how they see your people forever," Velterra warned. "Once they watch that footage, they'll never look at a human the same way again." "I know." Miho's expression hardened, and for just a moment, Velterra saw past the diplomatic officer to the soldier underneath. Maybe that's necessary. Maybe respect born from understanding is better than mockery born from ignorance. Velterra studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Very well, but I want you present when we show it. And Hannah, too. We'll be there." The viewing was scheduled in the Institute's secure facility, a room normally reserved for sensitive diplomatic materials. The administration, perhaps sensing something they didn't fully understand, assigned medical staff to be present. Counselors were placed on standby. These precautions only made the students more amused. On the 7th day, they arrived at the secure facility like it was a party. Daxtor brought snacks. Leanna had her recording equipment ready to document human failure for her research. Vero and his friends were taking bets on how quickly the humans would surrender in the footage. The secure room was larger than a normal classroom, with comfortable seating arranged in rows facing a massive display wall. Medical personnel stood along the sides, which the students found hilarious. "Do they think we'll faint from watching humans lose?" someone joked. The students filed in, still laughing, still confident. Miho and Hannah entered last, taking seats in the back corner. The students barely acknowledged them. The doors sealed with a heavy magnetic lock. The sound was final, ominous. A few students noticed and shifted uncomfortably, but most were still grinning. Professor Velterra stood at the front, her 4 arms folded. She looked at each student in turn, her expression grave. The medical staff looked tense. One counselor was whispering into a communication device. "Before we begin," Velterra said, her voice carrying unusual weight, "I want you all to remember something. You demanded this. You filed a petition. You insisted on seeing this footage despite multiple warnings. What you're about to witness is historical record. It cannot be unseen. It cannot be forgotten." A few students exchanged glances, their smiles fading slightly. Velterra's eyes found Miho in the back, and something passed between them, an understanding. Then she looked back at the rest of the class. "You demanded the truth. Remember that you asked for this." She nodded to the technician. The lights went dark. The display wall flickered to life, and the truth began to play. The display wall came alive with crystal-clear footage. Text appeared first, crisp and official. Galactic Warfare Simulation, 47 years AGO. Below that, 12 species, 20 soldiers each. Then, non-lethal competition, 72-hour maximum duration. 72 hours? Someone muttered. No one ever lasts that long. The footage showed an enormous arena, a converted moon with varied terrain. Forests, mountains, deserts, urban ruins. 12 teams materialized at different starting points, each wearing their species' standard combat gear. The camera work was professional, switching between team perspectives and overhead strategic views. The students watched as teams immediately began setting up operations. The Kryn built fortified positions using their natural strength. The Vexians used their superior vision to scout. The hive mind species worked in perfect coordination. Standard opening moves, textbook strategy. Then the camera focused on the human team. 20 soldiers in simple gray uniforms. Their leader, a man named Jinho, gathered them in a circle. No special equipment. No obvious advantages. They looked painfully ordinary compared to the armored Kryn or the multi-limbed Zentari. "Look how small they are," Leanna whispered, though her voice lacked its usual confidence. The first few hours unfolded like any other competition. Teams probed each other's defenses. Small skirmishes broke out. The Vexians eliminated a Zentari scout. The Kryn crushed a hive mind outpost. Normal warfare simulation, the kind shown in tactics classes across the galaxy. At hour 6, everything changed for the humans. A combined force of Kryn and Vexians hit the human supply depot in a perfectly executed raid. The explosion was massive, even with non-lethal charges. The depot contained everything: food, medical supplies, backup equipment, all of it gone in seconds. The human team scattered, forced to retreat into the rocky Badlands. Daxtor actually chuckled. Classic rookie mistake. They put all their supplies in one location. They're finished. But in the secure viewing room, Professor Velterra said nothing. The medical staff shifted positions, moving closer to the students. The footage continued. Other teams, seeing the human defeat, began celebrating. Some placed bets on how long until the humans formally surrendered. The standard protocol was clear. Teams that lost their supplies could withdraw with honor. Everyone expected the humans to tap out. They didn't. Hour 12 arrived. The timestamp glowed in the corner of the screen. Other teams were rotating sleep shifts, standard procedure. Soldiers would fight for 4 hours, rest for 4, maintaining constant readiness. The camera showed Kryn warriors sleeping in shifts, Savari analysts resting between tactical planning sessions. Then it showed the humans, all 20 of them, still moving, still active, setting up improvised camps, crafting tools from debris, mapping enemy positions. Not a single one was sleeping. "That's impossible," Leanna said. "You can't function without rest." But the humans kept going. Hour 18. A human soldier named Hyun was caught in a Vexian trap. The non-lethal blast hit him square in the chest, the kind of impact that would hospitalize most species for days. The safety protocols required immediate medical evacuation for injuries of that severity. Hyun got up. The students leaned forward, confused. On screen, Hyun was clearly hurt, moving with a limp, holding aside. Any reasonable soldier would withdraw. Instead, he tore strips from his uniform, wrapped his own wound, picked up his weapon, and rejoined his team. "Why isn't he retreating?" Vero asked. No one answered. Hour 24 arrived, a full day into the simulation. Most competitions were decided by now, but this one was just beginning. The students in the viewing room had stopped laughing. They watched in growing unease as the humans maintained their pace. No rest, no slowdown, just constant, relentless movement. The camera caught a conversation between Jinho and his second-in-command, a woman named Salmon. "We're out of supplies," Salmon said. "Then we take theirs." Jinho replied simply. What followed defied every tactical manual in the galactic database. The humans didn't fight like soldiers. They fought like something else entirely. When their weapons broke, they made new ones from whatever they could find. Rocks became hammers. Broken metal became blades. They turned the arena itself into a weapon. Hour 36 came with shocking speed. The Savari team, widely considered among the galaxy's best strategists, sent a surrender signal. Liena sat frozen in her seat, watching her own species' forces retreat. The team leader's face was visible on screen, and what the students saw there wasn't shame or defeat. It was fear, pure, primal fear. "We can't keep fighting them," the Savari commander told the competition officials. "They don't stop. They don't slow down. It's like fighting ghosts who feel no pain." One by one, other teams began pulling out, not because they'd been defeated in combat, because they were exhausted, because their soldiers needed rest that the humans somehow didn't, because fighting an enemy that never stopped, never slowed, never quit was breaking them psychologically. Hour 48. The camera showed something chilling. Human soldiers pursuing retreating Vexians through the forest terrain. The Vexians were faster, should have been able to escape easily. But every time they stopped to rest, the humans would appear. Not running, just walking, steady and inevitable, like a nightmare that couldn't be outrun. A Vexian soldier collapsed on screen, not from injury, but from exhaustion. The humans walked past him without stopping, already tracking the next target. The viewing room was dead silent now. Several students had their hands over their mouths. Daxtor's earlier confidence had evaporated completely. Hour 72. The maximum duration. The timestamp felt ominous now. The final footage showed the simulation arena from above. 11 team bases were empty, abandoned. Soldiers from every species except humans lay scattered across the terrain, collapsed from exhaustion. Many had literally run themselves into ground trying to escape pursuers who never stopped chasing. The camera panned to the human team. All 20 soldiers stood in formation at the center of the arena. They had injuries. Yes, their uniforms were torn. They looked tired, but they were standing, alert, ready, and most terrifying of all, they looked like they could keep going. Jinho's voice came through clearly, awaiting next objective. The simulation officials had no response. There was no next objective. The competition was over. The humans had won, not through superior firepower or better tactics, but through something the galaxy had never encountered in warfare. They had simply refused to stop. The screen went black. The lights in the viewing room came on. No one spoke. No one moved. Several students were visibly shaking. Vero had gone pale, his metallic skin dulled. Daxtor, the proud Kryn warrior, stared at nothing, his worldview shattered in 72 hours of footage. In the back corner, Miho and Hannah sat quietly, their faces unreadable. The silence stretched on, broken only by someone's ragged breathing. Finally, one student whispered what they were all thinking. "What are they?" "You wanted to see us fight. Now you know. We don't fight like warriors. We fight like hunters. And humans never, ever stop the chase." Two months passed, and the Galactic Institute felt like a completely different place. The change wasn't immediate or simple. It happened in small moments, quiet conversations, and gradual realizations that spread to the student body like ripples in water. Daxtor was the first to change, and perhaps that made sense. Warriors understood respect, even when it came from unexpected places. He spent weeks in the library, barely sleeping, poring through human military history. What he found shook him to his core. Battle after battle where humans have been outnumbered, outgunned, and by all logic should have lost. But they didn't. They just refused to accept defeat. He studied the Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 humans held off an army of thousands. He read about Stalingrad, where humans fought in the ruins of their own city through an entire winter. He learned about the Chosen Reservoir, where human soldiers marched through frozen mountains while being attacked from all sides and somehow made it out. The pattern was always the same. Impossible odds. Logical defeat. And then humans doing the illogical thing. They kept fighting anyway. His thesis took 4 weeks to complete. He titled it, "Reconsidering Human Military Theory, Determination as Ultimate Weapon." The paper analyzed dozens of human conflicts through the lens of persistent predator behavior. His conclusion was stark. Human military success had little to do with technology or numbers. It had everything to do with psychological endurance that no other species could match. On the day he published it, he found every human student at the Institute and apologized to each one personally. When he reached Miho, the big Kryn warrior actually bowed, a gesture of profound respect in his culture. "I called you weak," Daxtor said, his voice heavy with shame. "I mocked what I didn't understand. I'm sorry." Miho clasped his shoulder. "You didn't know. Now you do. That's what matters." Leanna's transformation took a different path. She approached it like the analyst she was, tried to understand the psychology behind what she'd witnessed. Her research project became an obsession. She interviewed every human student, asking questions about motivation, determination, and what drove them to keep going when logic said to stop. What she discovered fascinated and disturbed her in equal measure. Humans had something she called spite motivation, the ability to succeed purely to prove someone wrong. They would achieve impossible things just because someone said they couldn't. It wasn't logical. It wasn't efficient. But it was devastatingly effective. She found historical examples everywhere. Humans told they couldn't run a mile in under 4 minutes, so they did it. Humans told they couldn't climb certain mountains, so they climbed them. Humans told that diseases were incurable, so they cured them. Over and over, being told something was impossible seemed to make humans more determined to do it. Her final paper included a warning. Never tell a human something cannot be done. They will take it as a personal challenge. Vero's change was perhaps the most important. As a politician's son with connections throughout the Galactic Council, he had influence. He used it. He returned home during break and spoke with his father and other council members. His message was simple but urgent. The galaxy was misunderstanding humans in a dangerous way. He proposed new legislation. The human combat ban should remain. That wasn't in question. But the reasoning needed to be made public, not hidden in classified files where it could be forgotten. Every species in the council needed to understand that the ban wasn't an insult to humanity. It was a safety measure for everyone else. We're treating human restraint like weakness, Vero argued before the council chambers. We're mistaking their choice for peace as inability to fight. That's not just wrong. It's dangerous. If we push humans too far, if we back them into a corner thinking they're harmless, we might discover what they're really capable of when they stop holding back. The proposal was debated for 3 days. In the end, it passed unanimously. The truth about human nature would become part of standard diplomatic training across the galaxy. The graduation ceremony arrived on a clear spring day, if spring meant anything on a planet with 3 suns. The entire class gathered in the grand amphitheater, wearing their formal robes. Professor Velterra stood at the podium, her forearms spread in a gesture of blessing. "You came here as students," she began, her voice carrying across the crowd. "You leave as diplomats. But more importantly, you leave with understanding. This class learned something that many in the galaxy still don't know. You learned the most important lesson about humanity." She paused, looking directly at the human students scattered through the crowd. Never mistake human restraint for weakness. Never confuse their preference for peace with inability to fight. Humans choose cooperation. They choose diplomacy. They choose kindness. But understand, they're the only species that evolved to never stop pursuing a goal. When they set their mind to something, when they truly commit, nothing in the galaxy can match their determination. The amphitheater was silent, hanging on every word. The humans in this class endured weeks of mockery. They stayed quiet when you called them weak. They remained calm when you made them the subject of jokes. They did this not because they couldn't respond, but because they chose not to. That choice, that restraint in the face of provocation, that is the mark of true strength. Miho and Hannah stood with their classmates, no longer isolated in the back. They were surrounded by friends now, real friends who understood them. When their names were called to receive their diplomas, the applause was genuine and respectful. As the ceremony ended and students poured into the courtyard, a young Zentari student approached Miho nervously. She had multiple arms that fidgeted with anxiety, a fresh graduate heading out on her first assignment. "Lieutenant Miho, I'm assigned to Earth for my field study program. I'll be there for 6 months. Do you have any advice? Miho smiled warmly, the kind of smile that had made him seem harmless for so long. We're friendly, I promise. Humans love having visitors. You'll have a great time. The Zentari relaxed slightly. That's good to hear. I was worried after everything we learned. Just remember one thing, Miho added, his smile never wavering. If you challenge a human to something, we will take it seriously. How seriously? Miho's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. We walked on our moon because another nation said they'd do it first. We invented fly machines because someone said humans could never fly. We split the atom because we were in a war and needed a way to end it. We've eliminated diseases, climbed the highest mountains, and dove to the deepest oceans. All because someone, somewhere, said it couldn't be done. He leaned in slightly. We don't know how to quit. It's not in us. So if you challenge a human to something, even as a joke, understand that we might actually do it just to prove we can. The Zentari student had gone pale, her skin shifting to a lighter shade. Hannah laughed, breaking the tension. He's exaggerating to mess with you. Don't worry. We save that energy for things that actually matter. Most of the time, we're actually pretty relaxed. We like movies and good food and lazy weekends. You'll be fine. The student nodded, still looking uncertain, and hurried off. Across the courtyard, Daxthor watched the interaction. He stood with Liena, both of them observing the human graduates as they laughed and joked with their classmates. They looked so normal, so ordinary. They're still holding back, aren't they? Daxthor said quietly. Liena nodded slowly, her analytical mind working through the implications. The footage we saw was a simulation. Non-lethal weapons, competition rules, safety protocols. She turned to look at Daxthor, and he could see the realization in her eyes. Imagine if they were actually fighting for survival, if the rules were gone, if they were truly threatened. They both shuddered, not wanting to complete that thought. In the distance, Miho and Hannah had joined a group of other human graduates. They were laughing about something, sharing stories, looking like any other group of young people celebrating their achievement. So normal, so harmless. But now, the entire galaxy understood the truth. Humanity's greatest gift to the Galactic Council wasn't their technology, though it was impressive. It wasn't their diplomacy, though they excelled at it. It wasn't even their determination, though that was terrifying in its own right. No, humanity's greatest gift was simpler and far more profound. It was their choice to never show what they were truly capable of. Their choice to hold back. Their choice, every single day, to be kind instead of terrifying. And the galaxy had finally learned to be grateful for that choice.